welcome to another episode of Brown Girls Happy Hour, where two brown girls make cocktails inspired by amazing women, and we also get guest authors on our show. And today we have with us Katie. She is the author of two books, the Dragon Warrior series and How We Fall Apart, and her other two books are going to be released pretty soon. So I'm going to invite Daman once to today, and then we can also invite Katie. Oh, she's
Hello,
hi. Hi, Daman. How are you?
good. How are you?
I'm good. Katie's also joining now.
Hello.
Hi,
Hi,
Katie.
Katie. How are you?
Can you hear me and everything?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So nice to meet you.
nice to
Yeah,
meet
it's
you
so great to
too.
meet you too. Thank you for joining us.
Of course. Thanks for inviting me. It's an honor.
Yes. So, like we said, we are going to be making a cocktail soon. But before that, do you want to introduce yourself really quickly, Katie?
Yeah, so I'm Katie Zhao. I'm the author of the middle grade Chinese inspired fantasy called The Dragon Warrior. And this year I have my young adult debut, which is a dark academia thriller with an all Asian main cast. That's sort of like One of Us is Lying meets Crazy Rich Asians. And it comes out in August. And then in September, I also have my next middle grade, which is a sci-fi inspired by Fortnite that features a Chinese girl protagonist who is determined to basically battle her way to the top of this esports tournament. So yeah, you can tell that I really love, writing stories that reflect my heritage. I kind of have like a wide variety of genres going on there, just because like as a reader, I love reading anything and everything. So, I'm trying to like establish more of a brand for myself, but like, at this early stage of my career, it's just sort of like whatever my agent says is good, then we do that. And I also recently just came back to New York, so that's a bit of personal news. It's pretty exciting.
Wow, you've been so busy, right? Writing on the book. Two of your books are coming out soon, and then a big move. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's been a lot, but it's okay. I like being busy.
Yeah, we,
Yeah,
we can relate with that.
Yeah.
yeah. So should we go ahead and make the cocktail first, and then we will get into the discussion?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right then. So get a cocktail glass with some ice in it. And then you have about 2 ounces of rum
Okay. This huge bottle of rum with me.
going to
I'm
go.
just gonna use this glass. That's all I've got here.
Yeah, and then about half ounce of lemon juice. This is a
Oh,
big drink.
okay. So I think the recipe said like lime
Yeah, I
wedges. So I
yeah, I
used the,
usually have everything juiced up, and that's
oh,
how I
okay.
store stuff. So that's why
I
it's like
see.
you can have like a half lemon slice or something. I just have like half ounce juice, and
Yeah,
then
I
I'm
thought
just
it, yeah.
just gonna top it off with Coke.
Okay.
I don't have Coke. I have ginger ale, so I'm going to use that.
Yummy.
I went out to buy this today because I was like, it's been a while I had Coke, and this is an excuse, so I'm gonna go just for this.
Yes. I've never made a cocktail on live before, so this is really exciting.
Just stir it. Oh, this looks good.
It's taking me a while to like squeeze all of the juice out.
That's why I prep, Katie. Like
I should have thought
everything.
this through.
Yeah. This looks
See,
good. Oh,
looks
wow,
good.
the color is so beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yours is so pretty.
Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, I've just got Coke here. How much do we put in of the Coke?
It said 4 ounces, I think, in the recipe, but I just filled it up. Whatever
Okay,
space was left.
I'll just do whatever looks good.
Yeah.
That looks about right.
Yeah, we're pretty light with recipes. Like we usually just tinker with it as we want. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it was a very pandemic-based idea, so there was never a pressure on getting it right. As long as there's a cocktail, it's fine.
Yeah.
So, cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Ooh. Mm,
Ooh, I like it.
Yeah, me too.
pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know how it'll taste with an actual Coke because I have ginger ale, but yeah,
Yeah,
it's
our drinks must be very different.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, Katie, you have dedicated this drink, not dedicated this drink, but you said that your favorite female icon is Lucy Liu. Tell
Yeah.
us about her.
Yeah. I mean, Lucy Liu, I feel like needs no introduction. I think when I was like growing up at like, elementary school, middle school, high school even, she was like the one prominent Asian American woman actress who I could point to and be like, oh, she looks like me. Or,
Yeah.
not like looks like me, but like, she's also East Asian. And she's like really made it. So yeah, and I've also just heard like I've never met her, but I know people who have met her and they just said she's like the loveliest person. So I trust their judgment and I'm just like, she seems like a really great person. And yeah, I love like all of her work. And like even my parents know who she is, which is a big deal because they don't know anybody. Like I'll mention an Asian American figure who I think is pretty big. Like I was talking to them about Daniel Day Kim a couple months ago, and they were like, "Who's that?" And I was like, "Oh, you don't know Daniel Day Kim." But they know her, so that's yeah, good for her.
Wow, that's amazing. And then, so I also wanted to ask you, what inspired you to start writing? Like, did you always wanted to become a
hmm
writer?
Yeah, I did. I think it's so interesting, this question, because sometimes you get people who are like, yeah, I didn't know I wanted to be a writer. It was just sort of something I stumbled into, and I, decided I'm pretty good at this. I'm going to keep going. Not the case with me. I was a very avid reader as a child. Like I was always the kid who had like one new book every day in class. Like not kidding, every single day was a new book. My friends used to make comments about that. And then when I was in like third grade, I want to say one of my English teacher gave us an assignment to make up a short story. And I still remember that feeling so well. Like I just started writing my own thing and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so fun. And I had a feeling that it was what I was meant to do, but when you're at that age, you don't know for sure anything yet. Later on, my parents were a little bit discouraging of writing just because it's an uncertain career path. So they pushed me toward other things like law school or accounting. They wanted me to be a doctor at some point. And so I did like try a little bit here and there, but ultimately like my heart was always with writing, and clearly I've come full circle back to writing now.
That's great. Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Like, did your parents support you in that? Because I know even with like Indian parents, like if we tell them we want to become a writer, they would definitely oppose it. Or,
Yeah.
try to like direct us toward more conventional career paths.
And even what Katie said about doctors, lawyers, engineers, it's like so relatable for us as well, because that's what our parents did too. Yeah, I guess like we had two choices growing up. We have discussed this before. You could either be an engineer or a doctor.
Yeah. No, my parents were, very traditional in that sense. Like even now, I'll like show them checks from my writing and they see the checks and they're like, okay, clearly she has income. But still like, sometimes they'll make comments like, you should just get a normal job. Like this is so exhausting on you, and it's like so like your schedule's like all over the place, and it's just different from what they're used to. So obviously they want to look out for me, but I'm like, I think I know myself better. I think I know myself best, and I know this is what I want to do. So yeah.
Yeah, that's really great. So how do you like I guess like when you're writing, you mostly
hmm
write fiction books. So how do you come up with, like ideas or characters? Or what do you usually like what is your kind of, I guess, writing style?
Yeah, sure. Um, Actually, it's sometimes it changes like from book to book. But typically what'll happen is I'll just have like a concept in my head, like it'll just randomly pop into my head. Like with my middle grade debut, The Dragon Warrior, I just randomly thought one day, how cool would it be if we had a book that was like Percy Jackson, but with Chinese mythology? And then eventually I wrote the book. And with How We Fall Apart, it was an idea that had been percolating in the back of my mind ever since my last year of high school. And I was thinking like there are so many like thriller stories that are set at schools, like murder mysteries, but I never felt like I understood the characters' motivations to kill each other at school. And I thought like if anything, it would be like the students who are at the top of the class trying to like off each other to basically just to like increase their chances of getting into a top university. And when I thought of like my school, it was a school with a small like Asian population, but the kids who were at the top of the class, like a lot of them were Asian. So that idea sat in my mind for I want to say 4 or 5 years before I finally like sat down to write it. And this was after I was agented. So sometimes story ideas will like they'll come to me, but I know I'm not ready to write them. And in that case, I'll put them off and I'll like think about them every once in a while. Maybe like write little snippets here and there. But sometimes like with the Dragon Warrior, it's just like I get the idea and I'm like, I think I'm ready to do this. Let's just do it. So yeah, it's a little bit all over the place.
I'm
Yeah.
hearing you talk about Lucy Liu and the characters in your books, and I feel like representation is a big part of what you are trying to do with your work, right? So, do you understand like where it comes from for you personally? Like, is there a very personal place that it inspires you to write this way? Or are you trying to do something with your work in terms of increasing representation for characters?
I would say it's both, right? Like when I was younger, as I said before, I was a very avid reader, and the books that I read didn't reflect me at all. And like that was fine because I still enjoyed the stories because I think like when you're reading, you're not there specifically to be like, oh, I need to see my whatever like thing represented here. Of course, it's nice to have it, but even if you don't relate to the character that much, I think it's still fascinating to read books. But if you never see yourself represented, I think that's an issue. And for me, that was definitely an issue because of the lack of representation. I wasn't proud of being Asian for a very long time. I still remember like I was 10 years old and like I think I was on my way back home from Chinese school or something because my parents used to send me to Sunday Chinese school. And I was like, well, none of the other kids at American public school like have like a weekend school. And I was like, why do I have to do this? Like, I don't want to be Chinese. Like this is it's just annoying, right? But now that we have more representation, now that I'm older and, sort of like trying to rediscover my own identity, all the things I never learned when I was younger, it's like writing these stories is a way to reclaim the pride that I never had as a child. And it's a way for me to like reach the readers who are the age that I was at that point in my life, so that they hopefully don't have to like go through the same experience. Like I've already had young readers and teen readers tell me how much they feel seen in my books and that they've never like felt seen that way before. And like, to me, that's like the highest praise ever. That's why I do this.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's so amazing because I was going to ask you like what made you
Mm-hmm.
write middle grade books, right? So
Yeah,
that's amazing.
that's a really great question. So I actually started out writing young adult because when I finally got serious about writing, like I want to say 14, 15, that was when I started writing novels. And at that point I was reading young adult. So it makes sense that I would start writing young adult. And so I wrote young adult for, a few years. It was my senior year of high school when I finally had a novel that I felt like was good enough. It was a young adult, but it got rejected. And then when I finally tried querying again, the book that got me an agent was The Dragon Warrior, which is a middle grade. But the funny thing is that it actually started out as young adult. So this whole time I thought I was meant to, get published as a young adult. And I mean, now I have, but what got me into the industry was middle grade. And yeah, I'm really grateful for it because I think middle grade it's just really great in a way that it lets you be more silly than young adult is. And I would say like I'm the kind of person, I don't take myself too seriously. So writing serious young adult is great, but sometimes I just need a break to like write something funny, something where the characters like will make like silly little one-liner jokes here and there, and it's not like weird. So yeah, that's sort of like the roundabout way that I came to write middle grade.
Yeah,
And did you have to like rework any of your like, right? You started with young adult, right? And then you went into middle grade. So did you have to rework the same stuff for different audience at any point?
Oh yeah. So The Dragon Warrior was a book that I drafted thinking it was young adult. But now that I look back on it, I'm just like, I don't know how I ever thought it was young adult because like one, the comp title was Percy Jackson. And two, like the humor was just, it fits so much better in middle grade. And like considering like the themes about family, loyalty, and like, going on a quest to save the world, it just fits into middle grade so much better. And so when I first drafted it though, like the characters were young adult age. So the main character was, I think 16. And now I look back on it and I'm like, I can't imagine her as 16 because I ended up aging her down to 12. And that was how we sold the book was, with a 12-year-old protagonist as middle grade. And I just think it works so much better that way. And clearly publishing thought so too.
Yeah, right. So this is the question that we ask all of our guests. What is your favorite reading genre, like book genre? Like when you're reading.
This is I honestly, I started like saying this earlier, but I'm kind of a mood reader. So it's hard to say because I sometimes like I'll really be in the mood for like epic fantasy, but then the next day I'll be like, okay, I want like something lighthearted. So I will say though, I don't typically gravitate toward contemporary unless it's a murder mystery or thriller, which makes sense. That's my debut now. So if I had to settle on a favorite genre, I would probably say fantasy. But that includes both epic fantasy and contemporary fantasy because like I would just say like fantasy in general is just my favorite genre.
Yeah, right.
And do you have any book recommendations for us?
Yeah.
Oh man, where to start? So I feel like I recommended this book to everybody, like even my family who doesn't read, but The Poppy War. The Poppy War, the Dragon Republic, The Burning God, that trilogy by R.F. Kuang, just that honestly, like I don't read much adult epic fantasy, and by that I mean I don't read it at all really. But that trilogy got me into the genre, so it got me interested in like other adult epic fantasies like the Broken Earth trilogy, like Black Sun. So yeah, and I mean I guess that's another way to say that representation is important because I think the reason why I was never interested in adult epic fantasy is because of the fact that like it's just not like I never really saw Chinese or Asian inspired fantasies that much. So I just like didn't gravitate toward it. But yeah, I'm rambling now. But yeah, that one's definitely one of my favorites. What other fantasy? I have to think of fantasy that I've really enjoyed lately. I actually don't think I've been reading that much fantasy. I've started reading Brandon Sanderson's books, and I know I'm really, really late to his books. But I'm reading Mistborn right now, and I really like it. I feel so bad because I was like, oh, I love fantasy, and now I'm like totally blanking.
No, that's totally fine. We totally get that.
We didn't mean to put you on spot, Katie.
No. I'm sure after the live, I'll be like, oh man, I have like a whole list of books. But you know what? V.E. Schwab's Vicious and Vengeful, which I think it's like dark academia with like fantasy elements. I mean, that Vicious was a book that like totally blew me away while I was in the middle of a reading slump in college. I still remember like how much it blew me away. So that's one of my favorites for sure. Um, I can't even look behind me. Like when I lived in Michigan, I had this bookcase behind me. So like if anyone ever asked me what are your favorite books, I would just like turn around and be like, okay, I can think of them.
One of our, we have got a question, and she's my friend. She's saying, could you repeat the name of the trilogy, please?
The Poppy War trilogy? Is that the
Uh-huh.
one?
Yeah,
Yeah, the Poppy War. Yeah. Oh, it's super good.
And she
I
also
mean,
asked another
yeah.
question. She's like, what's the age range in middle grade?
I think middle grade typically is 8 to 12 years old.
Okay.
So like upper elementary, early middle school.
Right. Yeah, middle grade is I think it's a phrase that is used in the US more because so
Yeah.
like in European countries or in Indian
Oh, okay.
middle grade is not really a thing. Yeah.
So is
But
it all called young adult or what's it called then?
I think it's
I think in book publishing, they might be using the same terminology, but in terms of thinking of student life, we didn't have these kind of demarcations, so to speak. We just had like grade one, grade two, grade three, and like you would keep going.
yeah, and the
Oh,
age range. Yeah.
okay. Got it.
So, Katie, one last question that we have is what is your favorite cocktail?
Oh, so I don't really drink that much, but I will say like, uh, I guess I just really like anything that's sweet. And usually like I don't go for cocktails. I'll go for like wine, like
Oh, yeah.
but anything sweet goes for me.
Yeah, me too. I love wine actually. That is like the
Yeah.
best Saturday night.
Are you
I
planning
mean,
your
this
week
cocktail is
night?
pretty good. I'll say this is my favorite cocktail. The
Oh,
recipe you
thank you.
guys sent
I already
over.
gave a hint. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is pretty good. I think the Coke makes it sweet to your
Yeah,
taste.
definitely.
Yeah. Thank you, Katie, for joining us today on IT Live. We really appreciate it. And we're looking forward to you reading your books now, the upcoming books that are coming in August and September, right?
Thanks
Where
so
can
much. It was so
our
much
listeners
fun.
read the
Thanks,
book?
Katie, for joining us. It was great talking to you.
Yes.
All
Thank
right,
you.
cheers.
Great. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Cheers.